All right, hey, we can start because it is 12:30. I am on time. Hot dang. Yeah. Y'all, it's a first this weekend. And I am absolutely that girl that's like, if you're on time, you're late. And if you're 15 minutes early, you're on time. And so I was 3 minutes late to my first panel. I have never been late. I was horrified. Anyway, I'm not late for this one. So, hey, you are hanging out in video game cosplay, Defying Physics, in case you're wondering where you are. If you're just here to enjoy the AC, awesome. Fully support that. Enjoy your chair. I'm enjoying mine as well as the AC. The delightful gentleman in the corner turned on the fan for us, and that's very helpful as well. Everybody thank the delightful gentleman in the corner. It's a little love, you know. But this is video game cosplay Defying Physics. I am Little Red Fox Cosplay. I have been making costumes a long time. I am older than you think. And I have been doing this for a very, very, very long time. I've been making costumes since I was a kid. I grew up backstage in dance and theater companies, and my mom was a costumer. So I started making costumes as like a single-digit age, like doing tutu ruffles and stuff like that. That's where I started. So I've been doing this for a hot minute. It has been a moment, and I love it. I genuinely love it. But I am also a big gamer nerd. That is, I am a huge gamer nerd. Like to the point where if you look at my lock screen on my phone, it is my video game boyfriend, and I will not be judged for it. It's Fenris from Dragon Age 2. Like I said, I will not be judged. No, it's valid.
I agree.
No, see? Okay. It was one of those things where, like, the man comes out, there's blood, he says words, and I'm like, I'm done. Sold. Instantly. It's Gideon Emery, and his voice is just, if you've never heard Gideon Emery's voice, it's just unreal. You have heard, have you played Skyrim? Okay, then you've heard Gideon Emery's voice. It's all over. He's one of the guard voices in Skyrim, and I swear you've heard it everywhere. It's the deep, rich, like, honey voice. Yeah, it's that honey voice, and that's Gideon Emery. So good. Anyway, so yeah. Sorry, I digress. But yeah, I'm a big gamer nerd. So, you know, you throw the two together, and it's like I do a lot of costumes from video games. The fun thing with video games is video games are animated. Video games do not have to play with the laws of physics. However, we are not so lucky, and we do have to take physics into account. You can't just randomly do whatever you want to do. That's not the way it works. So, yeah. So I have to pay attention to the laws of physics when I play games. That's just, you do too. When we're making costumes from video games, we have to pay attention to the laws of physics. And there are so many things that they do that just don't work. One of the things that drives me absolutely insane is the size of props. Just right off the bat, the size of props is a lot. It really is a lot. My favorite, I like Final Fantasy 2. I'm a Final Fantasy nerd. And I'm actually building a white mage right now for Dragon Con. But that's one of the ones that I sit there and I go, who's got the dumbest props on the planet? And it's that darn Buster Sword. Valid. It's that Buster Sword. That thing is just unreasonable. Besides being big, it's bulky, it's too long. Dragon Age is also a frequent offender on that one. Fenris in particular. If you've ever looked at Fenris from the back, his sword goes over his head and then into the ground, which means he can't actually physically walk. That's not really possible. The sword is hitting, the point is on the ground and actually into the ground a lot of the times. It is way too big. That's not something that we can do. You have to change that. These are limitations we have. Sephiroth's big old Masuna, like that guy is just way too big. That is a delicate, and that one is that's a beast. We see that a lot in anime too. I had a friend that we did a Castlevania group like right before the pandemic, and she did that same Alucard's, like got that same kind of long, thin sword situation. That is a very, very hard thing to do in real life. The Buster Swords, you actually get a little bit of a reprieve with the Buster Swords because they're thick. It's a big, thick blade. You can kind of support them. Those long, skinny blades are going to be very fragile. Very, very fragile. It's very hard to make them not fragile because the weight of them, no matter what material they're made out of, the length of it is too long to not be supported in the middle, but the support that you have has to be absolutely teeny tiny minuscule. It's a really, really difficult one. The best that we could do with that when she made her sword, the best that we did with that was a material called Sintra. Y'all familiar with Sintra? Okay, so basically what Sintra is essentially, it's kind of the same stuff as PVC pipe, but just flat. It is a plastic. It is a cellular plastic. And it takes heat very well. It takes a simple curve very well, so it'll curve this way, but it won't take a complex curve really well without darts. A complex curve is like a half circle, a half round, like a boob cup or a helmet or something like that. You're going to have to put darts in it. But for a simple shape, for a sword or anything like that, it is a beautiful, inexpensive, lightweight material, and that gets you really far in video games. Those three things get you really far in video games. It also, you use super glue to bond it. So if you're attaching pieces to it, you attach them with super glue because the super glue will actually like react to the plastic and will form a chemical bond. So it will not come off. It can get a little bit brittle, especially if you overheat it. Just like anything. I mean, think about like, baking cookies. You bake a cookie and you make it to where it's rock hard. If you drop it, it's going to crumble. That's the same thing with pretty much anything. If you overheat something, it's very likely to get real brittle. So you want to kind of, only heat as you need it. If you don't need a curve, you don't have to heat it at all. Sands beautifully. Sands really, really well. But the texture on the top doesn't require a lot of sanding at all. It takes spray paint beautifully. It's a great material. It used to be, before Warbler, it was like the thermoplastic. But after Warbler, it was not, because of the complex curve situation, because it only took those simple curves, where Warbler took a complex curve. A lot of people started leaning to Warbler and kind of forgot that Sintra exists. But Sintra is a fantastic material just in general. It's great for shields, really large shields, fantastic. It's great for blades because you can get that thin blade and it has enough body to hold. But once you get past a certain length, it doesn't really matter what kind of material you have. It's going to do that wobble. You're just going to have a real hard time with it. What we ended up doing with the Alucard sword was, I think it was 2 layers of Sintra with like a really small, like the really skinniest of skinny wooden dowels. You'll know what I'm talking about, like the one you get from like Home Depot or something. That skinniest of skinny, kind of like in there in the middle to give it a little bit. But even then, the tip was real delicate. We just had to be real aware of it. It is doable. It's just hard. But I love Sintra for big things. I love Sintra. And it's really not very expensive. Sign shops, it's one of the things that they make like yard signs and things like that out of. Sign shops carry it a lot. You may be able to source it locally. You may be able to find scraps locally. I've found scraps from sign shops in my area. I'm from Mobile, so sign shops. A lot of times if they've got scrap pieces, they're trying to offload them anyway. They don't want them. If you can use them, they'll take them. But yeah, if you're doing something more along the line of a Buster Sword, you might want a little bit more like heft because that's a big boy. So I like EVA foam for that one. EVA foam is that's the like old reliable. We love us some EVA foam. Personally, I get my foam from Blick. I use the SKS Props foam. It's called HD foam. It's a really, really, really dense EVA foam. It sands really nicely, and that's why because I've spoiled myself, I got some and I spoiled myself and I was like, this is beautiful material. And man, it sands so nice. And then you go back to like floor mats or something, and you're like, this is trash. It's really like, you know how like when you've been eating like Pop-Tarts your whole life, then you go and get like a fancy pastry, like one of the, and then you go back to Pop-Tarts and you're like, oh, it was that kind of situation. Yes, exactly. So I do like EVA foam for things that are big and bulky, because EVA foam does not have a lot of weight. One of the things that you have to really think about when you're building massive props is the weight. With weapons, you want to think about the weight distribution. The weight is all going to be down where you're holding it, never at the tip. You're going to have a bad time. The weight is at the tip, you're going to have a bad time. Basically, I mean, it's physics. Anything that is closer to your body is going to be a little more stable than anything that's hanging out way out in front of you, way out behind you, or anything like that. You want to keep the weight as close to your body as possible. That becomes tricky with hammers. Hammers are, how do you do? How do? Two ways that we have found how do. The hammer is hollow. That's one way. That's part of it. And it's not, there's just one or the other. You do both. The hammer is hollow, but also you want to put weight in the bottom. So right there at your handle where you're holding it, is there a large pommel? Is there a way to hide some weight? I've tucked weights into PVC pipe handles, things like that. Anything to get the weight down by your hand. Even if this is heavy, if you've got more weight at the bottom, it will be a lot more comfortable to carry, because this weight will hold that weight. Weight closer to your body, easier than weight further away from your body. The rules apply, and sometimes they save us. But shields. I know a person who they made a large shield. It was Cassandra's shield from Dragon Age Inquisition. And it is Dragon Age is a frequent flyer in this one. We're going to call them out a lot because they do a lot of things that offend me. I love them, but I'm also like, none of y'all cosplayers, huh? Actually, I have a great story about them and cosplayers. They actually have a wonderful relationship with cosplayers, BioWare does. We'll get to that in a minute. But this shield. So the shield was made, I think it was wood. This was not the choice I would have made. As far as I am aware to this day, there is still nerve damage from carrying this giant thing around strapped to her arm. Be aware. The bigger the prop is, the lighter the material needs to go, unless you're not going to be carrying it all day. If you're going to sit it down and leave it, cool, make it out of wood, whatever. But if it's something that you're carrying around, be aware of that weight. As you're making it, hold it. Hold it in the position you're going to be carrying it and walk around with it. Walk around your street with it. Make your neighbors concerned. Like, do it. Because you do not want surprises. I was telling a neighbor, the neighbors called the cops on me one time. Because I told this story another bit. I'll tell y'all because it's funny. I was weathering a prop. It was an axe, a battle axe. It was from my Trolloc. And the way that I like to get blood spatter on my weapons is y'all know those big car wash sponges? Like the ones that look like a giant peanut? Okay, I get those and I fill them up with a mixture of like water and paint. Paint's generally reds, blues, greens, a little bit of browns, whatever. So I want some like bloody kind of weird colors. I throw them in there and make a weird like little blood soup. Dip the sponge in it, fill it up, get it real saturated, put it out on, I have this old like table. It's like one of those wrought iron like tables like your grandma had. Put it out on the wrought iron table and just start beating the ever-loving crap out of it with the weapon, right? Because then the blood spatter looks right. It looks like I've been hitting things with my weapon. Makes sense, right? And then you wipe your hands wherever you would wipe your hands naturally, like you're in battle. I'm just going to wipe my hands down my pants because they're covered in blood. We're going to keep going. So I'm doing that. They're hearing me. And then I walk out to the front yard. Y'all, I am covered in blood with an axe. And they did call the cops. That's kind of how that went. Had a very nice conversation once they figured out that the axe was absolutely 110% basically a Nerf weapon, could not have hurt anything. And I was like a 5 foot nothing girl covered in paint spatter. They're like, well, this is neat. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. I know it, and I'm a redhead naturally, and I think I get called out for that a lot. But they're like, she's suspect. That one we're not sure about. It doesn't help that I walk out of my house in various like weird things, and they're just like, I don't even know who that person is. So it's whatever. It was a nice conversation. There was a misunderstanding. The cops thought it was great. They were actually really curious about my weapon. They wanted to play with it a little bit. They're like, how do you make this? So we had a little discussion. I taught a little mini class on cosplay. It was fine. It was fine. But that was a thing that happened.
Did you look over and your neighbors are like peeking out the...
They're always peeking out the blinds. Yeah, I wave to them now.
She's like, I see you.
Hi. I know they're cats. Their cats like me. The cats come over and hang out, so it's fine. The cats are not scared. But yeah, so that was a thing that happened. But yeah, so that's basically like that's large questions about large props. You guys hit me up. You got questions, concerns, building something you're not sure about while we're on topic?
So stuff like scythes, is it like a similar situation with the hammer where you just need to put more weight in the handle?
Yeah. Yes. Scythe, same situation, because you've got so much weight at the top. What you're going to want to do is really, really weight down by your handle where you're holding it, where it's closest to your body. They're tricky because the weight, not only with the hammer, at least it's kind of concentrated at the top. A scythe has the weight that's just like it's pulling you back the whole time. You're really going to have to counterweight that. Someone who is really good to ask questions about scythes is a friend of mine called Geek Out Props, Geek Out Studio. They're local, but they have made some beautiful weapons, and that's one of the ones that they're real good at. So definitely, if you have questions, that's one to reach out to, or you can reach out to me, and I'll be like, yeah, I can tell you what I know. But man, they built ones that are bigger than me. So Geek Out Studio. It's a little green like robot logo, but they're super precious. Also, since we're in a video game cosplay panel, if you're into Halo, they run the 405th here. So the 405th is a costuming unit for Halo cosplayers. So if you happen to be a Halo kind of human, so are they. They're good humans. But yeah, so it's big props. If you guys got questions about big props, like I said, you can holler now, or we can talk about it later. What kind of,
Metals.
Metal, like metal paint or just metal in general?
Metal in general, I guess. I mean, yeah.
You got to be real careful with metals because sometimes cons won't let you bring it in.
Well, like, for structure more than like...
For structure more than anything, honestly, more than anything else, what I've used has been those tiny little metal rods like you get, and I use them to sandwich in between plastic. Because so many of the cons that I go to don't allow metal weapons, so I just, in general, don't use it just in case. But you want to go real, yeah, you're going to want to go real light. Aluminum is going to be what I would choose. If I were doing something in metal, it would be aluminum.
If we were to replace the metal with, say, like a plastic, like rotting or ribbing that you would find in, like, a corset.
Yeah. People make that out of Warbler all the time. People do, like corset boning and things like that, like the open, like the wrought iron corsets and stuff. They make it out of Warbler all the time. I've seen Warbler plenty.
And
That's
the same thing. You can heat it to get the structure.
Yes.
You just don't overdo it.
Yeah, and actually with Warbler is kind of a neat material for that because one of the things that you can do with Warbler is that you can use the scrap. Warbler is another thermoplastic. It is basically it's wood pulp and plastic shavings in a glue, essentially. A little more complicated than that, but that's the basic gist of it. But you can take it and you can like smush it like a really hard, difficult to work with Play-Doh and actually like roll it and make ribs and things like that out of it and make tubes. Two cosplayers that I really like for Warbler. There is a guy on Instagram. His name is Ludus Cosplay. That's my Warbler guru. That man is making some beautiful things with Warbler. Also, recently, Calbutt Crunchies just did a Harrow Hark, and she made an entire rib cage out of Warbler scrap. And so it's just a beautiful example of that. That's what I would probably go with. I love Warbler in general, but that's the one that takes like a complex curve, so you can do a lot with it. And being able to use the scraps, I love that because I'm cheap. We love using the scraps. Never throw away a piece of Warbler. I don't care how big it is. If it's a little itty bitty, you keep it.
What advice do you have for more like, I don't know if you've ever played this, but things like Genshin Impact that
Oh, yeah.
are like very decorative almost weapons? How would you suggest?
I like Warbler for that too.
Warbler?
Yeah, the nice thing about Warbler is that Warbler sticks to itself. And so it's really easy to do things like filigrees and things like that. You build the base and then you build the filigree on top. The other thing that you can do with Warbler that's really cool is that if that's a lot, because Warbler is kind of expensive, if that's a lot of work, if that's a lot of cost, you can make something out of foam. So like you make your like thicker foam for the base, and then you use like the cheap craft foam for like the filigrees and the decorative, and then you can lay a piece of Warbler over the top, heat it, and start forming it around the foam that you made. It doesn't affect the weight very much because foam's fairly light. And then you have a single layer of the Warbler on top. That'll also hold the shape, because one of the problems that we do have with Warbler here, you can't leave it in your car. You have to be real, because it's a thermoplastic. It's made to kind of soften when it gets hot. It's hot here, y'all. So it helps to have something underneath the Warbler that'll kind of hold the shape. Yeah. So the foam is wonderful for that, and you can just use like basic craft foam for that, and nobody will ever know. This is literally an orange sheet from Walmart underneath this thing. Nobody's ever gonna see it, you know. I do like it for that. It's great for those kinds of things. Also, if you can go online on Amazon and look for molds and things like that, and find like filigrees and pretty decorative things. You can find lion heads. You can find all kinds of nonsense, all kinds of different molds. A lot of them are cake making molds, but you want to get a silicone mold. But a lot of them are made specifically for like cakes, for like decorative cake bits and stuff to fondant. You can use foam clay, and you can press those into the molds, and you can pull foam clay. You can also use hot glue on those. Yeah.
I want to cosplay.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
To make his sword, but also that oni belt buckle, that mold thing that you just mentioned would be good for it.
Yeah. You get a good mold and fill it foam clay, but like smaller things, man, hot glue roses are a thing, and they work beautifully. Hot glue roses are a thing.
So you just fill the mold with hot glue?
Mm-hmm. And pop it out. And Surebonder has hot glue sticks that come in colors. They also come in metallics. You have blacks, whites, silvers, golds, pinks, purples, greens, whatever. There are colored hot glue sticks now, y'all. This is like, I remember when I started this, all we had was cheap cotton nastiness and weird satin that fell apart when you breathed on it, and shiny wigs and cardboard. Y'all be blessed. You have so many wonderful things.
So is EVA since that does mold with heat, is that something you would recommend not leaving in your car, or does Warbler require less heat than that to mold?
Warbler requires less heat.
Okay,
Warbler gets real soft real fast. I always recommend when you get a new, even if you're used to having Warbler, if you're used to working with Warbler, if you change out your heat gun, if like your heat gun burns out and you get a new heat gun, get a scrap first and practice, because even someone who's used to using Warbler, it just heats. It goes from just right to over hot real fast.
Okay.
And so you have to be kind of careful with it. Foam takes a little more heat to shape. So, and it doesn't take as strong of a shape. Like the Warbler, like I said, if you lay it over the top of foam, you can cut it in. I use a butter knife for that, like the back side of a butter knife, and just will like press it into the corner, like where the foam pieces meet. And you get the crispest, cleanest lines. EVA foam is never going to give you quite that line.
So also is Warbler kind of like transparent, or?
There is actually a transparent Warbler. So there are WORBLA.
If I can add to it, Fibra is also a pretty
Yes,
plastic.
yes,
And
it is.
usually more cost effective.
It is. It
It's
is.
smoother. It doesn't have the cardboard in
It is. It is a
it. Fibra.
Thibra. THIBRA. It is a good thermoplastic, the trick with that is sometimes finding it. It's a little harder to find. To find. It's, I use it a lot when I can find it. I will use it more for like pieces that I'm wearing as opposed to armor work, because it just feels, it's more of a garment-y type thing, so a breastplate or something like that for me personally. Finding it can be the trick. That's the hard part. That was one that came around before Warbler, and then Warbler kind of came in and just ran it over. But it still exists, and it's still a great material, and it does have a better finish than the original Warbler. Warbler has 5 forms. Yeah.
I have an adding to your
Sure.
your molds.
Yes.
You can take something and then just squirt silicone over it and make your own mold.
Yep. You can.
Like if you have something that you want to copy.
You can. Yep. I mean, that's
Just
essentially.
silicone from Lowe's.
Yeah.
Just the squirty kind for windows.
Yeah, like the sealant type. It won't last forever, but it'll last for a project. Warbler has 5 different forms that I know of. There is the original Warbler, which looks like giant sheets of cookie dough. It really does. It looks like giant sheets of cookie dough. Then they came out with a black Warbler. Black Warbler is slightly smoother. It does not adhere quite as well as the original, like to itself. So I like to back it with glue, but it is a smoother finish, so it does save you some time. Then they came out with my personal favorite, which is the Pearly Warbler. Pearly Warbler is very, very smooth compared to the other 2, but it is even less likely to stick to itself. It will, but I just don't trust it. Then you have the Transpa Art, which is the clear sheets of Warbler. They're great for floating props, things like fireballs and stuff like that. It's wonderful for that kind of stuff. I find it to be a little difficult to work with, though. I'm going to level with you. It's temperamental at best. And then they also have the beads, but which is like what's the other one that has the beads? I forget the name. It's like plastic. No, it's plastic something. Anyway, but it's essentially it's the same stuff that they use for like dental molds and stuff, like dental beads, that kind of stuff. But Warbler is a great thing. So my other fun one that I see a lot in Dragon Age is, again, an offender on this one, is the floating prop. The prop that has no strap holding it to you, but somehow it's hanging onto your back for dear life. Like, how? How even? I was in the Dragon Con parade. It's been a while now, probably about 2015. I try not to do that anymore because, y'all, it's real hot. And it's also real early in the morning, and I'm really more of a nighttime Dragon Con person, not a morning time Dragon Con person, so that's asking a lot of me. But I was walking with the Dragon Age group and the Dragon Con parade years ago. And Punished Props, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Punished Props. Okay. They were in it. Vulpin was in it. Like, we were all, it was like all, SKS was the year that he debuted his Dragon Age Inquisition armor. So, like, I had all these, like, beautiful, wonderful people around me, and I was like this. Anyway, Vulpin had made for his wife, she did Isabella from Dragon Age 2. So she was actually with our section. She and Steven from SKS were in our section. And she was Isabella from Dragon Age 2. Isabella has 2 large daggers, very large daggers. They're really more like small swords that just magically float onto her back. She has no armor. She's a rogue, and she's a pirate. So she's literally wearing like a little pirate sail dress with like the little corset, and like it's cute. But like, but no strap, no place to hide a strap, no nothing. And this child was taking these daggers off, spinning them around, pop them back on her back, keep going. Magic. Magical. It was magnets, rare earth magnets. Rare earth magnets are how you're going to get just about anything to float. You can, when you're making your props, you can drill into your prop a little bit, sink a little magnet in there, pop a little magnet on the other side of the costume. Done. Magic. They will hold so long. And they will hold a good bit of weight. I have never had a rare earth magnet fail on me. I have had many things fail on me, but I have never had a rare earth magnet fail on me. They're fantastic, and they're small. They're teeny, teeny, tiny. So like you know what I'm talking about, the little itty bitty magnets like that? Yeah, they're teeny, teeny, tiny. So you don't have to like hide them. You can sink them in. You can sink them in like little, not so noticeable. I have things sunk into like little blades and sunk into little, I use them on like horns and things like that to clip in. You can put another one on the other side, clip it onto a hat. I mean, it's great. Rare earth magnets are how you become a magical human being. You can hold a staff on your back, you can hold a big old sword on your back, you can hold whatever, and it'll just pop there every time. They will find each other. They will also magnetize everything in your sewing kit if you accidentally put 2 or 3 in there, and now your scissors pick up pins. It's wonderful. That's a true thing. My scissors are magic. But yeah, no, they're great, and they're wonderful for all kinds of things. If you have armor pieces that have no obvious way of connecting on, if I can't use a snap, I like those, just like the big old, like normal, like you get at the sewing stores that are like that size snaps, like the big honking snaps, which are great for armor. But if you can't do that, if that won't work either, magnets is the way to go. Magnets are magical. Now, if you can use those big old snaps, kind of slide into that. What you can do with those, because you can put those on hard things. You think of snaps and you're like, we're going to sew them. And I can't sew this because it's armor, it's foam. So what we do is we put a snap on whatever piece of garment underneath us. We'll sew it in place. Then we take a piece of fabric and we sew a snap on that side. And then we glue that fabric onto the armor with contact cement, and then you snap it on, boom, done. You have a piece of armor that is sitting on you with no obvious way of it connecting, and it comes off very easily. It's great for things where you might want to wash. Please wash your costumes. Please wash your costumes. If you don't think you can, I promise you can.
I think the better advice is to pre-wash your fabric if you are not ADHD like me.
No. Okay, I say that, and that's one of those do as I say and not as I do, because I will absolutely be like, I ain't got time. Go. But yeah, no. Pre-wash your fabric, yes. But also just like your costumes, you're wearing them on your body. Your body gets funky, y'all. Wash your costume. Wash your armor. You can wash your armor. Do you know how to wash your armor? You go to the liquor store. I'm serious. You get the cheap Ucky vodka that nobody actually wants to drink. The cheap one, the real big one that comes in the jug. You mix it half and half with water. And then you put it in a spray bottle and you spray it. Alcohol kills germs. Germs cause odors. Alcohol, though, unlike like rubbing alcohol, the smell of rubbing alcohol will hang around forever. You never seem to shake it. You always kind of smell vaguely like you just put swimmer's eardrops in. So you don't want that necessarily, but vodka, the smell goes away. It's an old theater trick. We used it on, I did costumes for a show where they were performing like 6 days a week outside at a theme park, 2 shows a day. Those costumes were gross, were big gross. And so they would come back in and hang up their costume. We're right behind them with the vodka water spray because the smell would be gone. It kills the bacteria. It's generally color safe. Test it just to make sure. You never know. But it's generally color safe. I have never known anyone to have any kind of weird allergy to it. The alcohol dissipates really quickly, but it kills the germs on the way out, which is what causes the odor. If for some reason you absolutely cannot do that, you can put something in the freezer for 2 weeks and it also kills germs. So that's the thing.
What about Febreze?
Febreze only covers germs. Having said that, I do keep Febreze in my kit just in general because I'm like, I don't like that all that much. I just like to be, fresh and happy every day. So a little spray of Febreze is nice, but you want to really, really make it not smell. A vodka water mixture 50-50, that's been used, that's an old theater trick. It's been used for years and years and years. That's something they've been doing since like my grandmother was alive. It works. It works beautifully. It's works on all fabrics, and it works on things that are not fabrics, which is a lot of time that's our trick. So yeah, please you clean your stuff.
So the alcohol won't like destroy EVA foam?
No, it doesn't touch it. It does not mess with it at all. It won't hurt the paint. It won't hurt the foam. It won't hurt nothing. It's magic. I'm telling you. What you got?
I know this sounds silly, but with like a flavored vodka, like it's still clear, but like vanilla or something, would that leave a nice scent, or would would there be something that residue?
You know, I've never tried it.
That just came to mind.
Yeah, there would be sugar in it. You might be feeding the bacteria.
It has sugar in it. You won't.
Yeah, you might be feeding the bacteria if you tried it.
Normal vodka wouldn't, but yeah, they put sugar.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You might feed the well, I don't know, but what happens first? Do you feed them and then the alcohol kills them, or do they just kind of go, oh, we're good, we can eat, and they withstand the alcohol? I don't know. That's a science experiment. That also a party. So, but yeah, I don't know. I've never tried it. Personally, for me, if I was trying to get have a nice pleasant smell, I think I'd use the vodka first and then maybe hit it with Febreze after, because Febreze has never really messed with anything either. It's meant to be kind of color safe on things, so that's probably the way I would approach that one. But good question, and now I'm curious, and I have to ask. I'm gonna have to ask some people, so because I'm sure some of my friends have tried it, because you make do with what you have. Oversized armor. This one's a Warcraft thing. Warcraft's is in the penalty box for this one. Warcraft armor is massive. Like the floating shoulder pieces, you'll know what I'm talking about, where you're like, there is no way that there's anything underneath that. It's just kind of floating. So the way that we do that is you make a little cap that sits right on your shoulder out of the foam. This is real easy. Y'all gonna be real mad if you don't know how to do this. So you make a little cap, like a normal pauldron size. Then you put some blocks of foam underneath that. And then you put the big piece over the top of that. So really, you have the little piece that is doing all the work, and this big piece is just floating up there. You just got to be really aware of your weight. But that's how you do it. It's that simple. Who didn't know that and is mad right now? Yeah, I was mad too when I realized. But that works for any kind of floating armor. Giant headpieces, same thing. You want to build something that's small, put a spacer in it, and build the bigger piece on top. That's how you do that. There are ways to do these giant floating pieces, and it's really a lot simpler than you imagine. Crazy armor textures. Video game textures have gotten real good lately. Real good, but also that makes me real mad because it's a lot of work. Monster Hunter World, that's the one that I always, it's like, what's the armor texture? Monster Hunter World. EVA foam is your buddy for this one. EVA foam, carving into it, cutting into it, wood burning tools, fantastic texture with wood burning tools. Be careful, do that outside, do it in a ventilated area and wear a respirator, because if you can smell foam, you don't need to be breathing it. If you can smell anything, you probably don't need to be breathing it in. That's just a general safety rule. If you can smell it, probably do it outside in lots of fresh air and maybe cover all this. If it makes dust when you sand, you don't want that either. So mask up. It's important. But EVA foam is your buddy. That gets done really well with wood burning tools. Anything that you're using to shape like clays and things like that, you can use that. I've used forks for nonsense. You can do all kinds of stuff just pressing forks into things. Crumpled up aluminum foil on hot foam gives you fantastic leather textures. So many different ways. You're going to run up against different things, but I promise you there are no original ideas, and somebody has a tutorial out there. Google it. However, to make that specific texture, they can do it. We can make it happen. But yeah, EVA foam is definitely your baby for armor textures. Armor patterns, fabric patterns that are tricky, spoon flower. Almost every video game you can ever think of, if they have a weird, and again, we're going to Dragon Age. Inquisition was wonderful because you got to craft all your armor and stuff like that, but they had some really, really specific fabric designs that you absolutely will not find anywhere. So plaid weave comes to mind. Because when my team was bad, they all got put in plaid weave. That was the armor of shame, so that you had to run around wearing bright yellow plaid. That was your penalty for doing something I didn't appreciate. So Solus spent the whole game in it, y'all. The whole game. But that's a whole. Y'all ask me questions about Solus at another time because like he dumped me and I didn't have eyebrows and it was rude. Like the whole thing was just real rude. So rude. Took my tattoo off. I didn't put eyebrows on because the tattoo had like there was like an eyebrow on there. I was like, I don't need an eyebrow. That's just competing. He took my tattoo off and then he dumped me and then I'm sitting there dumped with no eyebrows. It was terrible. It was awful. But anyway, so he stayed the rest of the game in plaid weave because of that. But yeah, video game fabrics, if you're looking for a specific pattern, Spoonflower. Spoonflower is a place where people can go and digitize patterns and put them up online, and you can have it printed out on a number of different types of fabric. Wonderful, wonderful, easy trick. We love Spoonflower. Like I said, there are no original ideas. It's probably there. If you're looking for it, somebody else was looking for it too, and it's there. Straps to nowhere. That's my favorite video game, like no. All the video game costumes have these straps that do absolutely nothing. They're just there to look cool. That's the most annoying thing ever. Dragon Age, I'm looking at you again. My favorite is they literally did an entire set of armor, this Canary armor in Inquisition, and it's nothing but straps. And I'm just like, you guys, so rude. So rude.
Yesterday I was cosplaying Kaya from Genshin Impact, and there's so many straps.
Yeah.
I cannot move.
It's
my
a
arms
thing,
in my
and that's the problem. They are a mobility issue.
Yeah, and there was one that I took like a Jedi like sword class yesterday, and one of them just broke during it, so I just walked over and I said, I'll fix this later.
Oh yeah. You don't have to put all the straps. I'm just gonna throw that out there. That's one place that I really do kind of like to edit. You don't have to put all the straps. Nobody will notice that you're missing a couple of straps on the 18 strap monstrosity that you built. If you only have 16, nobody's gonna notice. It's okay. Straps, again, that's a foam thing. But what I really like to do is if it's a strap that's like going around your arm or something that's actually on your body that you need to move, it's elastic. I make the little elastic tubes or the little fabric tubes out of whatever, my leather or whatever the strap, and run a piece of elastic through it for everything. Because that way it's got some give to it. Leave a little place that's like, if it's an arm strap, leave this little spot right here where it's kind of just the elastic so that you don't have that rubbing up against you. It's a lot better. But yeah, Straps to Nowhere are, that's a fun little video game nowhere. Okay, so we are at time, basically. So, you guys got questions real quick? Anything? What you got?
What do you, when it comes to your joints of your foam and the warble, what do you use to, join it? The material itself?
I usually actually use Warbler to Warbler. You can, Warbler sticks to itself. Also, my go-to adhesive for probably just about everything, if it's not Sintra, because Sintra does form that chemical bond using super glue, everything else is contact cement. Contact cement all the way. What you got?
What about like hair that comes out of nowhere, what's that?
Cowbutt Crunchies has a wig book. That is, if you've got crazy hair situations, that book is well worth the cost. But generally speaking, what you're going to want to do is add a lot of texture into the hair and then build up around it. Also, foam. You can take foam shapes and glue hair to it and make it look like hair. That's a lot of like the bigger things.
So in that situation, do you do like with washing the wig, because obviously...
Now, at that point, you can't.
Okay.
But you can use that vodka water spray and it works real well.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
great for wigs because your wig will get funky. Because we lose a lot of heat through our heads. What we got? Anybody else? What you got?
Extra limbs.
Extra limbs. Also missing limbs. Thanks, Junkrat.
As far as the weight, counteracting the weight.
Counteracting the weight with an extra limb is going to be tricky. Are we talking about more like an arm or a leg?
Or like tentacles.
Tentacles. Okay, so when you build your tentacle, you're probably going to want to anchor it somewhere to like a backpack or like something on your back. you're going to want to sink all your weight into the butt end of that thing down by your back. The closer to like your core, the better off you're going to be. You're going to be a lot happier. But you're definitely going to want to carry that weight on your back. So think about before you start building anything, and this is just a general rule. Before you start building anything, think about how you're going to carry this thing and plan for that. Do that part first so that you're not having to go back and like retrofit it to something you're going to have a real bad time if you have to do that. Start with that base piece. Start with the piece that you're carrying first and make that part work and go from there. But yeah, you're definitely going to want to anchor it and put all the weight in the back.
Is there a good material to use?
I would.
It have to be lightweight.
I would honestly use foam for that. I would use foam or fabric. If you find a good fabric, you can do a good basically like a tube and stuff it with like a filler, and then put a something in the back to weight it down so that the weight carries that way.
So you could use like a stiff wire core.
Yeah.
And then like a headliner foam that you would get in your car. Really light.
Upholstery foam too, chair foam, things like that you can find at like Joann's. You can get the real thick upholstery foam. That's what a lot of like fursuiters use in their stuff is upholstery foam because you can get big sheets of it. It's going to be pretty light, and it'll give you the shape of it that you're looking for. But you can't. I would cover that. Like I wouldn't just have yeah. You're going to want to like cover it because it won't take paint or anything like that. It doesn't even really like to glue all that well. So it's kind of a monster.
The thing about upholstery foam is you can just squish it. It's not going to break.
Yeah, you can like beat the bejesus out of it, and then nothing's gonna happen to it. It's pretty nice actually. But yeah, anytime I've ever used upholstery foam, I've had to do exactly like wrap it in the duct tape and then cover it with like a piece of fabric to make it look pretty. That's the way I like to do it.
And then to switch it up, going from the bigger limbs like that, more of something like off of a beard.
Off of a beard?
If you're doing tentacles off of a beard.
Foam clay. I would use foam clay for that. I would use foam clay built around like a bendy wire. That's probably going to be the way, because you could basically make it like, essentially it's Play-Doh, but it dries to like an EVA foam.
Model Magic is also the greatest.
Yeah, Model Magic is a good one. It's super light. It can be brittle sometimes. You have to be real careful with like what you're doing with it. But yeah, that's what I would do. You just want something really light. Foam clay it turns into like air. It's kind of phenomenal. I love that stuff so much. It's like the greatest invention ever. Anyway, that's time. Thank you guys for hanging out. If you've got the app and if you liked it, hit the stars and say, hey, I like this one. If you think I'm nuts, hit the stars and be like, she's crazy, but also really entertaining. But yeah, and if you want to talk more shop, we're up in Artist Alley. It's the Blue Knight cosplay booth, and everybody that's hanging out up there is a bunch of cosplay nerds. And we've all done all kinds of stupid things. We're all video gamers too. So if you're into this kind of stuff, come talk to us. Just because we like to talk. This is the thing that we love. So, but thank you guys.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good rest of your day.